In this video, we're going to take a look at exam revision for the quadratic formula. So what we're going to do in this video is just take a look at some exam style questions for the quadratic formula. But I don't think we really need an introduction here, so let's get started with the first question. We're asked to solve this quadratic here, given our solutions to two decimal places. So to begin with, let's just recall the quadratic formula here. So x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root. So it's b squared minus 4ac, and this is all divided here by 2a. And this applies for a general quadratic, so that would be ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So what I need to do then, to begin with here, is identify the value of a, b and c for this quadratic here. So in that case then, a here, that's the coefficient of x squared. So we don't actually have a number here. Well, we do, but we don't write it. And that number is 1. So a is equal to 1. B is the coefficient of x here, like we can see. So that would be minus 5. Don't forget the minus, so that's minus 5. And then c here, that would simply be 2. I've got everything that I need here now. I've got a, b and c. So all I need to do now is substitute these three values into the quadratic formula. So in that case then, we get x is equal to minus b, that's going to be minus 5, plus or minus the square root here of b squared. So b is minus 5, so it's going to be minus 5 squared. Now, for the 4ac bit here, what I always like to do is put this inside a bracket. So 4 times it by a, which is 1. So 4 times 1, and times that by c here, which is 2. Okay, and then we divide this all here by 2a. That's going to be 2 times 1, giving me 2 there. All I need to do here now is simplify this. So minus 5, so this is a negative number, so it's negative 1 times another negative number, negative 5. So that would give us a positive number. So minus 1 times minus 5, that will give me positive 5. We get 5 plus or minus the square root here. Minus 5 squared, so that's minus 5 times minus 5, so that would give me 25. And we've got minus here. So 4 times 1 is 4, times by 2 is 8. We get 25 minus 8, and we divide all of this here by 2. So all we need to do now is simplify this square root here, this third. I've got 5 plus or minus the square root then. So 25 minus 8, so that would give me 17. And all we need to do here is divide this by 2. So we've done everything that we need to do now. All I need to do to finish with here is just put this into my calculator, because we want to give the solutions here to two decimal places. So in that case then, I get two solutions, and those two solutions come from the fact that we've got plus or minus here. We've got one solution when x is the positive part here, so it'd be 5 plus the square root of 17 divided by 2. My other solution here will be when x is the negative part here, so 5 minus the square root of 17 divided by 2. Okay, so what I'll quickly do then is just put this into my calculator here and round that to two decimal places, so 5 plus the square root of 17, divide that by 2. Then rounding that to two decimal places, I get 4.56. Okay, so that's when we add. And then for the negative solution here, 5 minus. So 5 minus the square root of 17, divide that by 2. And again, rounding my solution here to two decimal places, I get 0.44 there. Okay, and there we have it. So that's the solution to question 1. Moving on to question 2 now, where we're asked to solve this quadratic here, given our solutions again to two decimal places. So again, let's just start by recalling the quadratic formula. So x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all divided here by 2a. So I won't write down the general quadratic here. Remember, we just start by identifying the values of a, b and c here. Okay, so remember a is the coefficient of x squared, so that would be 2. b is the coefficient of x, that would be 1 here. We don't write the number, but that's a 1 in front of the x. And then for c here, that would be minus 4. And don't forget the minus here. This isn't positive 4, but it's negative 4. Now, we've got everything we need here. We've got the value of a, we've got the value of b, and we've got the value of c. So all I need to do now is substitute these three values into the quadratic formula. So substituting these values in here, we get x is equal to minus b, that would be minus 1, plus or minus the square root here. Well, I've got b squared, so if b is 1, that's simply 1 squared, minus, and again put this into a bracket here, I've got 4 times by a, which is 2, and times that by c, which is minus 4. Just extend the third there. We divide this all here by 2a. That's 2a, so 2 times 2 giving us 4 there. So write it in full. Let's simplify everything now. So I've got minus 1 plus or minus the square root here. Well, 1 squared would be 1. Now this bracket here, we've got 4 times 2, which would be 8, times it by minus 4. I'm going to get minus 32 there. So I've got 1 minus 32. And this is all divided here by 2 times 2, which is 4. So if I just simplify this one more time, then I've got minus 1 plus or minus the square root here of 1 minus 32, which is the same as 1 plus 32. That would give me 33 there. Then we divide all of this here by 4. So all that's left to do now is just put this here into my calculator. Remember, we get 2 solutions here. One of my solutions here would be when we take the positive, be minus 1 plus the square root of 33 all over 4. And then the other solution here, when we take the negative, so it would be minus 1 minus the square root of 33 all divided by 4. So again, if I just quickly put these into my calculator here, minus 1 plus the square root of 33, and then divide that by 4. And again, just notice here that we're going to give the solutions to 2 decimal places. So I'm going to get 1.19 here to 2 decimal places. And then for this one here again, just put this into your calculator. So minus 1 minus the square root of 33, and divide this by 4 here. And what I get then is minus 1.69 there. Again, the 2 decimal places. There we have it. So that's the solution to question 2. Taking a look now at question 3 here. So we're asked to solve this quadratic here. What you might notice now is different. It's we're asked to give the answers in exact form. So it's a plus or minus the square root of b. So to begin with, again, let's just recall the quadratic formula. So x equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all divided by 2a. So again, let's just start by identifying the values of a, b, and c here. So a is simply 1, b is minus 6, and c is positive 4. We've got everything we need here, so now let's just substitute these values into the quadratic formula. So in that case, then we're going to get x is equal to minus 6. So minus 6 plus or minus square root here of b squared. That's going to be minus 6 squared. And it's minus, and again, put all of this here into a bracket, 4 times a, which is 1, and times by c here, which is 4. And this is all divided here by 2a, so 2 times 1, giving me 2 there. So we just simplify all of this here, minus 6, that's negative 1 times negative 6, giving me positive 6 there. We get 6 plus or minus, and now we simplify the third here. So minus 6 squared, that would be 36. I've then got minus, so 4 times 1 is 4, times that by 4 again, I'm going to get 16 there. We get the square root of 36 minus 16, and this is all divided by 2. So if we simplify again here, I get 6 plus or minus the square root. So 36 minus 16, that would give me 20. Then we divide this here by 2. Now just to make a little comment here, you can almost basically skip from here to here. You don't need to obviously write this extra step here, but I just want to show all the steps in the working just so I don't confuse anyone as we work through these questions. So now what you might notice here is we need to give the answers in the form a plus or minus the square root of b. So what that means here is we need to simplify this third here, okay, this root 20. So root 20, we do that in the top right corner here. So root 20, well, if we simplify this third here, that means I now need to write this as a product of two thirds. Well, one of those thirds is a square number, so it'll simplify. So I can write this as root 4 root 5. And in that case, then we could write this as 2 root 5 because the square root of 4 is 2. So in that case, then I can write this as 6 plus or minus 2 root 5 because that's the same as root 20. So 2 root 5. And this is all divided by 2 here. And now what I can do is simplify this and give it in this form here. So now I've got 6 over 2. That would give me 3. And then I've got plus or minus 2 root 5 divided by 2 here. And 2 root 5 divided by 2 would simply give me root 5 there. Okay. And notice now I've got it in this form here, where in this case, a would be 3. We're not asked to identify the value of a and b, but just so it's clear what we've got here, b would be 5 there. Okay. And there we have it. So that's the solution there to question 3. Moving on to question 4 now, where we're asked to solve this quadratic here, given the solutions to 3 significant figures. Now, before we actually start by writing down the quadratic formula, we have a bit of an issue with the actual quadratic here that we're asked to solve. And the reason why we have an issue is because it's not in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Okay? And when we use the quadratic formula here, we use it on a quadratic in this form. So what I'm going to do then, I'm going to make the right hand side here equal to 0. I'm going to balance the equation here. So what I'm going to get then is x squared. Now this is minus x here on the right hand side. So if I balance the equation, it would become plus x on the left hand side. And then because this is positive 5 here, if I balance the equation, that would be minus 5 on the left hand side. And that's all equal to 0. So now let's write down the quadratic formula here. So x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared. So b squared minus 4ac. It's all divided by 2a. So to begin with, let's just identify the value of a, b, and c. So a here, that's the coefficient of x squared, so that would be 1. For b then, the coefficient of x here, again, that would simply be 1. And then for c here, that would be minus 5. We've got a, we've got b, and we've got c, so all I need to do now is substitute these three values into the quadratic formula. If we do that over here, I'm going to get x is equal to minus b, that's going to be minus 1, plus or minus the square root then. So it's b squared, so that's going to be 1 squared, minus 4ac. If I put this all into a bracket now, it's going to be 4 times it by a, which is 1, and times it by c, which is minus 5. And then we can close the bracket, and this is all divided here by 2a, so that's 2 times 1, giving me 2 there. So we just simplify this here, I've got minus 1 plus or minus the square root then. So I've got 1 squared, which is 1. And then in this bracket here, I've got 4 times 1, which is 4, times it by minus 5. So that would give me minus 20. What I've got then is 1 minus minus 20, which is the same as 1 plus 20. That would give us 21 there. Underneath the square root, we've got 21. And this is all divided here by 2. So we've done all the hard work now. All we need to do here is just put this into our calculator. Remember, we get two solutions, so x is equal to the positive part first, so I do minus 1 plus the square root of 21. And that's all divided by 2. I'll put that into my calculator in a moment. Then my other solution here is when we take the negative here, so -1 minus the square root of 21, and we divide that by 2. So again, put both of these now into the calculator and see what we get. So -1 plus the square root of 21, dividing that by 2 now. So to 3 significant figures here, I'm going to get 1.79 there. And then if I do the negative solution here, -1 minus the square root of 21, divide that by 2. And again, to 3 significant figures here, I get -2.79 there. Okay, and there we have it. So that's the solution to question 4. And finally, to finish with here then, if we take a look now at the very last question, where we're asked to solve this quadratic, given the solutions to 3 significant figures. So again, we have a bit of an issue with the original quadratic here, just like we saw in the previous question, because it's not in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So what I need to do then is just rewrite this quadratic here so that it's in this form. So the easy way to do that would be to subtract 11 off both sides. So what I'm going to get then is 4x squared minus 16x minus 11 is equal to 0. So now if we just write down the quadratic formula here, x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all divided by 2a. Okay, so again, if we just start off by identifying the values of a, b, and c here. So a is the coefficient of x squared, so that would be 4. B is the coefficient of x, that would be minus 16. And c is minus 11. Okay, so we've got everything that we need here now. We've got the value of a, b, and c. So what I'm going to do then is just substitute these values into the quadratic formula. I'm going to get x is equal to minus b, so that's minus 16. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's minus 16 squared. Then we've got minus 4ac, so again, put all of this into a bracket here. So 4, times it by a, which is 4, and times it by c, which is minus 11. And then we divide all of this here by 2a. That's going to be 2 times 4. So if we simplify here, minus 16, that would be positive 16. I've then got plus or minus. So to simplify this third here, I'm going to use a calculator just so I don't make a mistake. So 16 squared, that would give me 256. I've then got minus, so 4 times 4 is 16. Times it by minus 11. And I get minus 176 then. So I've got minus 176. Like so. Then we divide all of this here by 2 times 4, which is 8. Okay, so we get something that looks like this. So to simplify this one more time now for this third here. So I'm going to get 16 plus or minus, so it's going to be the square root now of 256 plus 176, because we've got minus of a minus here. So 256 plus 176, and this gives me 432. Okay, so we got a square root of 432 there, and now we divide all of this here by 8. Okay, I want to give the solutions here to 3 significant figures, so I'm going to get 2 solutions then. We get one solution when we take the positive, so I'm going to get 16 plus the square root of 432. Then we divide that by 8. Then my other solution here will be when we take the negative, so 16 minus the square root of 432. And we divide that by 8. Okay, so put both of these now into your calculator. So 16 plus the square root of 432, divide that by 8. So, given our solutions now to 3 significant figures here for this one, so to 3 significant figures, I'm going to get 4.60 then. And for this one here again, put this into your calculator. So 16 minus the square root of 432 divided by 8. And I'm going to get minus 0.6. I'm sorry, two three significant figures. So I'm going to get minus 0.598 there. Okay, so nearly rendered that incorrectly, but there we go. So minus 0.598 there. Okay, and there we have it. So that's the solution to question 5, the very last question. That brings the end of this video on exam revision for the quadratic formula. In the next video, we're going to take a look at an introduction to functions.